Imagine a fantastic scenario. During the War of Wrath against Morgoth, the Dwarves and the Elves, who usually can't stand each other, decide to team up. Together they stand against the most powerful Dark Lord ever known in Middle-earth, Morgoth. What do you think would have happened? Would their combined strength have been enough to defeat him? It's an intriguing question to ponder. Picture the fierce battles with the sturdy Dwarves and graceful Elves fighting side by side, their determination unwavering. The outcome of such an extraordinary alliance is a mystery, but one thing is certain. If they had joined forces, it would have been a legendary event that changed the history of Middle-earth forever. Today in Fantasy Archive we will explore a what-if scenario. What would have happened if the Dwarves had engaged in the War of Wrath, toe-to-toe against the Orcs, Balrogs and Dragons of Morgoth? Stay tuned as we will ponder how the Dwarves would have used their great craftsmanship into war machines that would have influenced the development of the war in surprising ways. Let's refresh, so that we're all on the same page as to why this war happened in the first place. The conflict between Morgoth and the forces of good, including the Valar and other races such as Elves and Men, spanned over many years. Morgoth corrupted and manipulated others to serve him. This included men, elves, and evil creatures like dragons and orcs. The reason everyone fought against Morgoth was to protect the lands and people of Middle-earth, and prevent him from achieving his goal of absolute dominion. The War of Wrath is one of the most significant events in J.R.R. Tolkien's fictional legendarium, found specifically in his works The Silmarillion and The Children of Húrin. It is the final conflict between the elves, men, and forces of the Valar, the angelic beings who are the guardians of the world, against Morgoth, also known as Melkor, the first Dark Lord. The War of Wrath took place near the end of the First Age, after Morgoth had established his dominion and wreaked ruin throughout the land for thousands of years. The Valar, led by Eonwe, the Herald of Manwë, gathered an army composed of the free peoples of Middle-earth, including the Elves and the Edain, a race of men who were loyal to the Elves. They sailed to Beleriand, the region where Morgoth had set up his stronghold, Angband. The war was cataclysmic. The clashing of the armies with powerful beings and creatures fighting on both sides resulted in astonishing damage. You would think it was a natural disaster at the end of the world. Ancalagon the Black, the mightiest of Morgoth's dragons, led his forces against the Valar. Still, eventually the hosts of Morgoth were overwhelmed by the power of the Valar and the sheer magnitude of their armies. In the war's climax, Eärendil, a half-elf, flew to the battle on his ship Vingalot, bearing the Silmaril he had acquired. With the assistance of the Eagles, Eärendil fought Morgoth's chief dragon Ancalagon and defeated him. The fall of Ancalagon and the destruction caused by the Valar and their armies ultimately led to the downfall of Angband and the capture of Morgoth. After the war, Morgoth was overthrown and taken captive, and the Valar reshaped the world, removing Beleriand and creating new lands. The surviving elves, men, and other creatures of Middle-earth entered a new era, and the Second Age began. The War of Wrath marked the end of the First Age, and the beginning of a new period in the history of Tolkien's world. Now let's get back to business. In J.R.R. Tolkien's writings, the role of the Dwarves in the War of Wrath is not explicitly described or elaborated upon. The focus of the War of Wrath primarily lies in the conflict between the forces of the Valar and Morgoth, with the involvement of the elves, men, and various creatures. While dwarves are known to have existed during the First Age of Middle-earth, their involvement in the War of Wrath is not specifically mentioned in Tolkien's work. The dwarves are primarily concentrated in their underground kingdoms, such as Khazad-dûm, also known as Moria, and the Blue Mountains. Their interactions with the events of the War of Wrath, if any, are not detailed in the existing narratives. However, let's roleplay what would have happened if the dwarves actually fought said war with the Valar. The term Dwarves' War Machine generally refers to the formidable military technology and prowess displayed by Dwarven civilizations in various fantasy settings. Dwarves are often portrayed as skilled engineers, blacksmiths, and warriors, known for their advanced craftsmanship and innovation when it comes to creating weapons, armor, and war-related machinery. In Tolkien's works, dwarves are depicted as masterful inventors and builders, utilizing their expertise in mining and metalwork to develop powerful war machines. These war machines can include siege engines. Dwarves are renowned for their expertise in constructing powerful siege engines such as catapults, ballistas, trebuchets, and battering rams. These machines are designed to breach fortifications, demolish enemy walls, or launch devastating projectiles. War-forged constructs. The dwarves are also featured to be capable of creating the most terrifying war inventions and war machines together with other mechanical constructs. These inventions can be utilized as heavy infantry or siege weapons, capable of smashing through enemy lines or holding strategic positions. Underground fortifications. Dwarven cities and strongholds are often constructed deep within mountains or underground, utilizing the natural defenses of the environment. These fortified structures are designed to withstand sieges and attacks, making it challenging for enemies to breach their defenses. Taking all this into account, the dwarves' main contribution, if they had actually fought in the War of Wrath, would have been to supply or put forward the tank unit on the battlefield, which the elves didn't have or care to create. To be clear, a tank unit is what is considered in video games as the characters with higher defense stats and resistance or stamina. Basically, a tank is the one that is perfect for drawing attention of the tougher enemies, so in the end, the lighter units, or the one that focuses on attack and damage, can destroy any foe thanks to the tank taunting and receiving all major damage and bulking it up. If the enemy had only consisted of orcs, these extents wouldn't have been necessary. But when the Balrogs and dragons entered the picture, it was a game changer. As we saw in the Hobbit movies, the dwarves led by Dane Ironfoot brought to the Battle of the Five Armies various war machines, mostly in the form of war chariots and giant moving arrows with a fan-like mechanism. With that, they were able to destroy all elven arrows. Imagine this kind of invention being used against a Balrog. Attacking a Balrog in proximity is very risky, but attacking it from afar? An immense arrow like that could pierce the demon, and more than one could kill it, if not injure it at the very least. Exactly, they would have had a strategy or two, if the dwarves came up with something else to go against the Balrogs. Now moving on to Ancalagon. Ancalagon the Black was a mighty dragon, the biggest in size and power. Ancalagon was bred by the first Dark Lord Morgoth during the First Age of Middle-earth. Morgoth intended Ancalagon to be the mightiest and most destructive of all dragons, which justified his size, one that was said to be so colossal that his wingspan can block out the sun. Ancalagon played a significant role in this final conflict of the First Age. He was unleashed by Morgoth against the forces of the Valar, the divine beings who opposed Morgoth's rule. Ancalagon's appearance marked a turning point in the battle, as his immense power caused great devastation. However, he was eventually defeated when Erendil, a half-elf, half-mortal hero, aided by the eagles, fought against him in the skies. Now, let's think about how the dwarves would have managed the dragon. Even if Ancalagon is the biggest creature of Middle-earth has ever seen, it was not immortal. With that into account, the war machines of the dwarves could have done the same thing that the Iron Fleet did to Daenerys: kill one of the dragons with the right artillery weapon. This already happens in the Fourth Age to Smaug. It's true that during the battle, Erendil's ship Vingalot was lifted into the air by the eagles, and he engaged Ancalagon in climactic aerial combat. In the end, Erendil managed to slay Ancalagon, causing the dragon to crash into the mountains of Thangorodrim, the volcanic stronghold of Morgoth. The impact of Ancalagon's fall shattered the mountains and the land, marking the final defeat of Morgoth. The dwarves could have done exactly the same without using the eagles. They would have needed to craft a giant arrow and the mechanism to shoot it through the beast's heart. If that had been too difficult, they could have also aimed at Ancalagon's wings, making the beast weaker and also possibly fall on Thangorodrim, ending his life in a very spectacular and efficient way. As in the original timeline, the fall of the King of the Dragons was the turning point of the War of Wrath, which Morgoth finally lost, being imprisoned in eternal torment.